You only learn who you are when you stop needing everything to stay. Detachment is often misunderstood. People hear the word and imagine coldness, indifference, or a hardened heart. But the truth is, detachment is not the absence of love. It's the purification of it. It's the act of releasing someone or something from the prison of your expectations so that both you and the other are free to breathe, to be, and to grow. When you love someone deeply, it's natural to want them near. It's human to want connection, to crave closeness, to feel security in the idea that they'll always be there. But love that needs, that clings, that cannot survive without constant reassurance becomes something else. It morphs into possession, into fear of loss, into emotional dependency. That's not love. That's attachment. And attachment is always rooted in fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of being alone, fear of being unseen or unloved. Detachment, however, is rooted in freedom. It says, I love you, but I do not need to own you. I care for you, but I do not need to cage you. To detach is to recognize that your love does not grant you control. Your care for someone does not entitle you to their time, their choices, or their path. You can walk beside someone and still understand that they are their own person, with a journey that may intersect with yours for a time, but is not yours to navigate. Detachment allows you to show up fully in love, without letting that love consume you or break you when it shifts, when it leaves, or when it changes form. Some of the most powerful acts of love come wrapped in detachment. Letting someone go because they are not ready. Choosing silence when words would only wound. Allowing a person to make their mistakes even when you see the cliff they're about to fall from. Standing back, not because you don't care, but because you care enough to let them grow through it. Real love does not suffocate. Real love does not beg to be chosen. It does not manipulate, plead, or twist itself into knots just to be seen or accepted. It simply exists, steady, sure, detached, not because it is distant, but because it is deeply secure. It is easy to confuse attachment with intimacy. We think, if I love you, I must be affected by everything you do. I must feel it all. I must hurt with you. I must carry what you carry. But that is emotional fusion, not love. That is codependency wearing a mask. Love does not require you to drown in another sea. It allows you to bring a lifeboat, to sit with them without sinking with them. To detach is to recognize your emotional boundaries. It is to say, I can care without collapsing. I can love without losing myself. That is the most mature form of love, because it comes from a place of fullness, not lack. When you are whole within yourself, you do not enter love looking to be completed. You enter as a full being, offering your heart, not surrendering it as the only map to your identity. And when you can love someone while releasing them, you will find a peace that surpasses understanding. You won't be frantic when they don't text back. You won't crumble when they need space. You won't spiral when the relationship shifts. You will understand that detachment does not mean you've stopped loving them. It means you have started loving yourself too. Detachment gives love its wings. It says, I love you enough to let you go if you need to. I love you enough to not tie your worth or mine to whether you stay or leave. I love you enough to not project my wounds onto you. I love you with open hands. There is something sacred in that kind of love, something rare, something most never experience because they are too afraid to let go of the illusion of control. True love holds gently. It does not grip. It offers. It does not demand. It invites. It does not invade. And when that kind of love is met with someone who also understands detachment, the result is a connection that is light, liberating, and unshakably honest. Two souls walking side by side, not shackled but aligned, not performing for each other but simply being with each other. Detachment is not about building walls. It's about removing chains. It's not about closing your heart. It's about cleansing it of desperation, fear, and neediness. It is about loving more deeply, more purely, and more freely. And in doing so, you begin to see love not as something you grasp for, but as something you simply are. You embody it, you reflect it, you become it. Detached, not because you don't care, but because you've discovered a deeper way to care, one that honors both the other and yourself. Control wears a familiar face. It masquerades as care, as responsibility, even as love. It makes you feel safe because it gives the illusion that if you manage everything, if you anticipate the worst, if you keep everything and everyone in line, you won't get hurt, that you won't be abandoned, disappointed, or surprised. Control whispers that your grip is the only thing keeping things from falling apart, but what it doesn't tell you is that your grip is what's breaking you. We cling to control because it gives us a false sense of certainty. If we plan enough, prepare enough, expect enough, we believe we can stop the pain before it starts. We believe we can bend outcomes, steer people's actions, even prevent heartbreak. But real life doesn't work that way. People are unpredictable. Circumstances shift, emotions evolve, and no matter how tightly you hold on, some things will always be beyond your reach. Control is not protection, it is prison. It keeps you tense, watchful, and afraid to exhale. It makes you suspicious of stillness and skeptical of surrender. You're not living, you're managing. You're not flowing, you're forcing. It's subtle too. Control doesn't always come in obvious forms. It might look like over-explaining yourself in every conversation, trying to manage how people perceive you. It might look like replaying every word you said, wondering if you said too much or not enough. It might look like organizing everyone's lives so no one gets upset, and then resenting them for the weight you chose to carry. It might even look like perfectionism, thinking that if you just perform well enough, no one will have a reason to leave. But beneath all of it lies one fear. If I don't stay in control, I will get hurt. That fear is heavy. It drains you slowly. It keeps you guarded, always calculating the emotional cost of being vulnerable, spontaneous, or open. The real trick of control is that it pretends to be peace. It makes you feel like you're safe because you've got a handle on things. But peace is not having everything under control. Peace is being okay even when you don't. It's sitting with uncertainty and not panicking. It's being able to say, I don't know what's going to happen, but I trust myself to handle it. That's where the real strength lives, not in your ability to hold everything together, but in your capacity to let things go. Control is a trauma response. Somewhere in your story, chaos taught you that letting go is dangerous. Maybe people let you down when you needed them most. Maybe love felt unstable. Maybe the world proved to you early on that unpredictability equals pain. So now, your mind tries to build walls where it once only knew open fields. But you are not the same person you were when you learned to grip so tightly. You've grown, you've healed, and you deserve a life that doesn't require you to live clenched like a fist. You deserve softness, you deserve trust, you deserve rest. And rest doesn't come through control, it comes through surrender, through choosing to believe that your worth is not tied to how perfectly you manage everything, that your value is not measured by how much you can prevent, that your safety does not come from others doing what you expect, but from you learning how to respond when they don't. Surrender isn't giving up, it's giving over. It's placing your peace in something deeper than outcomes. What you'll notice once you begin to loosen your grip is that life flows easier. You don't have to micromanage relationships. You don't have to predict every possible reaction. You don't have to bend yourself into shapes just to make others comfortable. You begin to trust yourself again. Trust your resilience. Trust that even if things go sideways, you'll still be standing. You stop trying to fix people and you start listening. You stop trying to control conversations and you start connecting. You stop trying to prepare for pain and you start preparing for joy. Because joy too demands that you let go. You cannot experience joy when you are busy managing every detail. Joy is spontaneous. It needs space to move. It needs uncertainty to dance. Control suffocates joy. It chokes love. It silences creativity. It restricts growth. You cannot live fully and control everything at the same time. One will always cost the other, and the cost of control is often your peace, your energy, your presence. To live a life free from the chains of control, you must become willing to disappoint others, to be misunderstood, to let people walk away if they must. You must become okay with not knowing what tomorrow looks like. You must learn to sit in the in-between, and it will be uncomfortable at first. It may even feel terrifying. But as you release, you will also rise. You will begin to feel lighter, your breath will return, your shoulders will drop, and in that moment, you will remember. Freedom was never about having everything go your way. It was about knowing you'd be okay even when it didn't. That's the gift detachment gives. And it begins the moment you stop confusing control with comfort. Most people walk through life leasing their emotional space to whatever or whoever shows up loudest. Someone's bad mood, it moves in. A random insult, it takes a seat. A past memory, it pulls the blinds closed. A future fear, it clutters every corner. Day after day, we let people, problems, projections, and pain enter our hearts like uninvited guests. We make room for them. We give them keys. We even decorate around their presence. But we rarely pause to ask, who actually owns this space? When you live in a state of emotional renting, you constantly feel like your peace is fragile, like anything can disrupt it. And that's because it is. When your emotions are at the mercy of others, when they rise and fall based on someone else's opinion, reaction, or absence, you are not grounded. You are not in possession of your own internal world. You're reacting, not choosing. You're surviving, not building. Emotional renting looks like letting a single text ruin your entire day. It's reshaping yourself to fit into someone else's comfort zone. It's giving more than you have and resenting it later. It's needing permission to feel joy. It's asking others to validate your worth before you believe in it yourself. It's attaching your self-image to the approval, attention, or affection of people who never signed up to protect your heart. But there is another way to live, a way where you take back the deed to your soul, where you reclaim the emotional territory that was never meant to be governed by external circumstances, where you become the landlord of your inner peace, and everything that tries to enter must pay rent in alignment, in truth, and in respect. Emotional owning means setting boundaries, not because you want to shut people out, but because you finally understand what it means to protect your energy. It means deciding that not everything gets a reaction, not every message deserves a reply, not every story needs your investment. It means choosing your peace not once, but every day in 100 little moments when you could engage, but don't, when you could spiral, but stay centered, when you could lose yourself in the storm, but instead you anchor. And it's not about being emotionless. It's about being emotionally sovereign. Feeling deeply, but not destructively. Holding space for others without handing over the keys to your spirit. Learning how to stand in your own emotions without outsourcing your worth to temporary things or people. Think of it like this. Your emotional home should feel like a sanctuary, not a waiting room, not a battlefield, not a revolving door. It should be a space where love is grown intentionally, not consumed anxiously, where joy can breathe, where pain has room to be processed, not punished, where your identity isn't defined by who stays or who goes, but by who you decide to be, regardless. And to live that way, you have to take responsibility. You have to stop blaming other people for the state of your soul. Yes, some people brought chaos. Yes, some seasons broke you. But healing isn't about pretending those things didn't happen. It's about realizing they don't have to own you anymore. You can feel the wound and still choose peace. You can remember the hurt and still decide not to relive it every day. Taking emotional ownership means learning how to self-soothe, how to sit with discomfort without needing someone else to fix it, how to offer yourself compassion instead of criticism. It means understanding that you are not too sensitive. You're just absorbing things that aren't yours to carry, that your worth isn't a group decision, it's a personal declaration. And the shift isn't loud. It won't always be celebrated. In fact, some people will be bothered when you stop emotionally renting. When you no longer let them dictate your mood, they may call you distant. When you no longer chase their attention, they may call you selfish. When you no longer react to their chaos, they may say you've changed. And they'll be right. You have. You've changed because you finally saw the cost of giving everyone unlimited access to your heart. You've changed because you're no longer available for emotional eviction notices. You've changed because you know what it feels like to be at the mercy of every opinion, every rejection, every small shift, and you're not willing to live like that anymore. You don't owe everyone a seat at your table. You don't have to keep the door open for what drains you. Emotional owning is not about building walls. It's about drawing clear lines. It's about saying, this is my joy, my peace, my mind, and I choose what stays here. And when you make that shift, everything transforms. The world may not become gentler, but you will. You won't carry every weight. You won't attend every argument. You won't perform for love. You'll find yourself drawn more to silence than to noise, to calm than to chaos, to truth than to validation. You'll stop begging the world to treat you gently and start doing it yourself. Because the moment you stop emotionally renting, you remember something powerful. This life, this heart, this spirit, it belongs to you. And you are no longer handing out spare keys to anything or anyone that can't honor that truth. True strength is quiet. It doesn't beg for attention or force itself into spaces that do not hold it with care. It doesn't demand to be seen or validated. It simply is. It stands in its own fullness. It breathes without apology. And one of the purest forms of that kind of strength is being fully present, with your heart open, your mind steady, and your spirit at peace, while expecting nothing in return. That's presence without attachment. That's the art of the strong. Presence without attachment means showing up in the moment, not to control it, not to own it, but to honor it. It means being fully available to experience life as it is, without gripping so tightly that you crush its spontaneity. It's the difference between holding someone's hand and needing them to never let go. It's the space between caring deeply and requiring that care to look a certain way to feel secure. It's about learning how to love without leaning so heavily that you lose your balance the moment something shifts. This kind of strength isn't aggressive. It's not about building walls or keeping score. It's not hardened or bitter. In fact, it's soft, it's gentle, but it's grounded. It knows where it stands. It knows how to feel without falling apart. It knows how to love without losing itself. And that's what makes it powerful. Its refusal to be thrown around by every wave, every whim, every wound. So many people confuse detachment with coldness. They assume that if you're not chasing, not clinging, not reacting, you must not care. But presence without attachment is actually the opposite. It's caring deeply while knowing you'll be okay if things change. It's loving honestly without needing to grip someone so tightly that your love becomes a cage. It's being here, really here, while trusting that your peace isn't rooted in outcomes, but in your own alignment. There is a quiet grace in being able to walk into a room without needing to dominate it, to sit with someone in silence and not rush to fill the void, to listen without needing to prepare your defense, to love without needing to be needed. This kind of presence is magnetic. It draws people in not because it demands attention, but because it radiates stability. It feels like safety. It feels like peace. And yet this kind of strength takes time to build. It comes from the fires you've walked through, from the moments when you gave everything to something or someone and still ended up empty, from the times you mistook attachment for intimacy, obsession for loyalty, and chaos for passion. Those experiences are not failures. They are lessons. They are mirrors. They show you where you have abandoned yourself in the name of being chosen. They show you where you've traded your peace for proximity. But once you've tasted peace, the real kind, the kind that doesn't depend on who's texting you back, who's clapping for you, or who's staying, you don't trade it again. You begin to understand that your presence is a gift. Your time, your energy, your emotional availability, they are sacred. And they are not to be wasted on spaces that do not honor them. To be present without attachment is to say, I will give this moment everything I have, but I will not collapse if it doesn't give me everything I want. I will be fully here without trying to bend the moment to match my expectations. I will love with open hands. I will care, but I will not control. I will be engaged, but I will not be enslaved. This doesn't mean you become detached from joy or connection. On the contrary, it makes your joy more vibrant, your connections more authentic, because when you are no longer afraid of losing what you have, you finally begin to enjoy it. You stop gripping so tightly. You stop trying to predict every possible outcome. You let go of needing to script the future, and you start living the present fully, freely, fearlessly. You don't run from intimacy. You just stop mistaking it for dependence. You don't avoid emotions. You just learn to feel them without drowning in them. You don't shy away from relationships. You just stop turning them into anchors. You become less reactive, not because you don't care, but because you finally understand the cost of emotional chaos. You stop performing. You start existing. When you master the art of being present without being attached, you become the kind of person who can love deeply and walk away when love becomes a battlefield. You become someone who can pour into others without depleting yourself. You become someone who chooses peace over pride, clarity over confusion, and self-respect over desperation. You stop asking people to complete you. You start offering yourself as a whole person, knowing that if someone walks away, they are not taking anything you didn't already have within. And that is true strength, not found in control, not found in clinging, but in the freedom to be fully here and completely whole. That's presence without attachment. That's the kind of power no one can take from you. There is a kind of power that doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't swing wildly or rush to defend its name. It doesn't explain itself to people who have already made up their minds. It knows something deeper, something quieter. Not every battle is meant to be fought. Some are meant to be walked away from. And the moment you realize that, you reclaim a kind of peace that chaos can't touch. You don't have to engage every insult. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to prove your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you. Stepping back isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's knowing where your energy belongs and where it would only be wasted. It's realizing that silence can be louder than words, that peace can be stronger than retaliation, and that self-control is more impressive than public reaction. So many of us have been trained to believe that silence is surrender, that if we don't speak up, clap back, or prove a point, we've somehow lost. But sometimes the highest form of victory is not being moved at all. Sometimes the greatest show of strength is choosing to protect your peace more than your pride, because pride wants to win, peace wants to heal, and not everything that challenges you deserves a response from you. People will bait you with their projections, their insecurities, their unresolved pain. They'll twist your words, question your motives, and try to pull you into their storm, but you are not obligated to dance with chaos. You are not responsible for fixing what you didn't break. You don't have to match someone's energy just because they're loud. You don't have to turn your spirit into a battlefield just because someone else came to fight. There's a difference between defending yourself and exhausting yourself. There's a difference between standing firm and staying entangled. And too often, we confuse the two. We think we're being strong by staying in the fire, but strength is also knowing when to walk away from the flames. You can stand in your truth without staying in the drama. You can be clear without being combative. You can be kind without being consumed. Stepping back doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared enough to protect what matters most: your mental clarity, your emotional well-being, your ability to breathe without tension. It means you've outgrown the need to be right all the time, and you've embraced the higher path of being aligned. It means you've stopped giving free rent to situations that drain you. You've stopped bleeding energy over opinions that never fed you. You've stopped investing in what never respected your value in the first place. You don't owe everyone an explanation. Some doors close because they're supposed to. Some people fall away because they were never meant to stay. Some seasons end so new ones can begin. When you stop fighting every battle, you start living fully, calmly, intentionally. You start hearing your own thoughts again. You start responding from your center instead of reacting from your wounds. You start becoming the calm in the room instead of the chaos. And when you reach that place, when your silence is rooted in strength, not fear, you begin to attract peace like a magnet. Because the world doesn't just need more noise. It needs more people who've made peace with themselves. People who've learned that not every disagreement deserves a war. That not every confrontation needs closure. That sometimes the best closure is your growth, your evolution, your refusal to be pulled back into what no longer reflects who you are. There will always be moments that test your peace, words that sting, people who poke at your scars, situations that trigger your old reactions. But in those moments, remember this: just because it touches you doesn't mean it has to move you. Just because you feel it doesn't mean you have to feed it. Step back, not to avoid, but to rise. Step back, not in defeat, but in power. Because you don't have to fight to be strong. Sometimes strength is in the stillness. Sometimes power is in the pause. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is nothing at all. There comes a point in life when the mask begins to feel heavier than your face, when the names they gave you, mother, father, provider, healer, friend, partner, leader, start to echo louder than your own voice, when your days become so full of showing up for others that you forget what it means to show up for yourself. And it's not because you're ungrateful. It's not because you don't love the people you serve. It's because somewhere along the way, you became more of a function than a feeling, more of a role than a soul. You are not the roles you play. You are not the version of yourself others depend on. You are not the one who always says yes, the one who always fixes, the one who always smiles even when they're breaking inside. Those roles might be part of your journey, but they are not the whole of you. And the more you confuse your identity with your responsibilities, the further you drift from the core of your being, the part of you that doesn't perform, doesn't prove, doesn't pretend, the part of you that simply is. We live in a world that rewards performance, that claps the loudest when you wear your exhaustion like a medal, that praises your ability to carry everyone else's weight without ever asking who's holding yours. And so many of us learn early on how to disappear behind what we do. We measure our worth in productivity. We find our validation in how much we are needed. We tie our value to our usefulness. But usefulness is not the same as sacredness. Being needed is not the same as being known. And the soul does not thrive in performance, it thrives in presence. Detachment doesn't mean you abandon your roles. It means you stop allowing them to define you. It means you remember that behind every title is a living, breathing, longing spirit, a spirit that existed before the labels, a spirit that will remain after the applause fades, after the people leave, after the seasons shift. Detachment is the act of peeling back every layer that the world placed on you until you find the original you, the unfiltered you, the unedited you. It is easy to become entangled in the expectations of others, to believe that you are only as worthy as the last thing you did for someone, that if you stop, even for a moment, the world will fall apart, or worse, forget you. But the truth is, what is real will remain, and what is true will find you. You do not have to overextend yourself to be loved. You do not have to constantly prove your value to belong. You do not have to keep sacrificing yourself on the altar of being needed. To detach is to reclaim your name from every mouth that misused it, to walk away from every version of yourself that was built to survive but not to thrive, to silence the noise long enough to hear your own heartbeat again. It's saying, I release the pressure to be everything for everyone and returning to being whole for yourself. Because when you forget who you are, the world will try to name you. It will call you strong and forget that you are soft. It will call you reliable and forget that you are human. It will call you healer and ignore your wounds, but your soul remembers. And the only way to hear it again is to detach from everything that drowns it out. This journey of detachment is not easy. It requires a sacred kind of courage. The courage to say no to what once defined you. The courage to rest in a world that worships hustle. The courage to disappoint people in order to stay aligned with your truth. The courage to be still when the world tells you to keep moving. But what you gain in return is priceless. You gain clarity. You gain self-trust. You gain peace. You gain the ability to sit with yourself and feel at home. Sometimes detachment looks like taking a step back. Sometimes it looks like not answering the phone. Sometimes it looks like walking in nature without a destination. Sometimes it looks like sitting in silence until the noise inside your head begins to fade. It's not about becoming indifferent. It's about becoming deeply rooted in yourself, so rooted that you no longer bend every time someone else leans on you, so rooted that you no longer shapeshift to keep the peace, so rooted that you can finally say, this is who I am underneath it all, and I am enough. The world may never stop asking for more of you, but you get to decide how much you give. You get to decide what role still fits and what was never yours to carry. You get to pause. You get to breathe. You get to return to your essence, to your stillness, to the soul that is not defined by tasks or titles, but by truth. And in that space, you begin to feel whole again, not because you did more, but because you did less pretending, less performing, less pleasing. And in doing so, you gave your soul permission to be seen, not as a role, not as a function, but as the divine, powerful, unshakable presence that it has always been. Let them call you distant. Let them say you've changed, because you have. You're no longer bargaining with your peace. You're no longer attaching your worth to things that move, change, and fade. This isn't a cold heart. This is a clear one. And once you taste that clarity, you never again settle for chaos. Detachment isn't escape, it's elevation. And when you finally rise, don't explain it. Just stay there in your stillness, in your strength, in your power.